Hello, and thank you for hanging out here today at the International Day of Calm Summit. And thank you for attending this presentation on the physiology of calm. My name's Tom, and you'll be hanging out with me here for a little bit. Um, but first off, I guess, who am I? I'm a father and a husband first and foremost, but I was also conventionally trained as a physician assistant, and I took additional certification steps to get certified as a functional medicine practitioner. And I recently started a podcast called Talk Health to really help people find their direction at taking the small steps to improve their health. So I do want to take a quick second here and make a little bit of a distinction between conventional medicine and something like functional medicine, because not everybody might have an idea of what functional medicine is. So in conventional medicine, it's very well set up to address acute medical needs. These are things like infection, broken arms, heart attacks, strokes, these major things where acute, treatment and procedures are the mainstay and how we save your life or stabilize you. And it's absolutely 100% needed and very, very useful. What I found over the many years of practice in family medicine is that applying the acute care model like this to chronic disease was not quite getting me the results and the patients that I was treating the results to improve their chronic disease. And so that prompted me to look into more holistic, integrated functional medicine approach where we actually track and look into the root cause of why an underlying pathology or disease may be taking place. And so that leads me to this, all right? The physiology of calm, because it's not commonly taught, at least I was not taught it in the conventional education of physician assistant, at least how to navigate my way around this and help my patients find their way through this. Because as we'll see here today, the effects of stress, right, the opposite of calm, can be quite harmful, especially when we talk about chronic disease. So anyways, I just wanted to make that distinction here and tell you a little bit about my story, okay? Now, me also, this is my place of calm. My family, my wife, my kids, my dog, the garden. This is my happy place. But if you have a family and kids and pets, you may realize that this is a place of calm, most of the time. It can also be one of the biggest sources of stress in your life because you care so much that sometimes getting, when people in your life are hurt, this can increase your stress, or when you're in an argument, this increases stress. I know there are fantastic presentations today that are going to go into a lot of the nuances behind this. And so I'll leave it there. But if you have a family, you know that this can absolutely and is a place of calm, but also the antithesis of that. All right, so diving in here, I do want to put out a word of warning that this is an International Day of Calm. We took a pledge to be calm on this day. But during this presentation, I am going to go over a little bit of the physiology of stress. And so I want us to take some time here, reflect on some of the things we've already learned maybe in some of the presentations that we watched, and really use any and all tools at our disposal to stay in this state of calm, okay? Because I'm going to be throwing stuff at you that may get that heart rate up and get that breathing a little shallow. Okay, so take some time, step back, and we will all just take a second to breathe, okay? All right, so how is that? We feeling okay? Does that feel good? Awesome. Uh-oh. Did you hear that? Did that get anybody's heart rate up? Yeah, mine too, a little bit. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the physiology of stress and what's going on when we hear something like that, or we feel our phone vibrate, or we're in a traffic jam, or or an argument, anything that is going to stimulate that stress, right? It's in our pocket, in our hand most of the time, or it's very near to us, right? But phones are, of course, not the only source of stress. But what do they do? When you heard that ringtone, what happens? Our heart rate starts getting up, our breath gets a little bit shallow. A lot of this is due to these weird little organs that sit right on top of our kidneys, kind of like a hat. See a little gnome hat there, called the adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands are part of this system here that we'll dig into. But these glands themselves release a couple hormones that actually result in how we were just feeling there when that phone went off. So let's talk about it. The sympathetic nervous system, right? This is our fight or flight or freeze response. And it starts in our brain in the perception of what is going on in our immediate surrounding. And as you can see from this fantastic diagram, it has a lot of different results, right? Our pupils dilate so we can see and be aware of everything in our surrounding. Our bronchioles, they relax so that we can take more oxygen in. Our heart rate goes up so we can pump blood faster to our brain, to our extremities, so that we can run if we need to. And of course, our gut stops moving food through, right? We stop secreting things that are going to help with digestion and absorption. And this is huge. We don't need to be digesting food when we're in a state of fight or flight, right? So that makes sense. Our liver gets the signal and starts pushing glucose out, sugar, so that those muscles have more energy, access to the energy that we need to move. And of course, we touched on the adrenal glands where they're secreting adrenaline or epinephrine and noradrenaline or norepinephrine. All right, we hold our bladder so that it's not going to be contracting, not time to pee quite yet. And this is all of this stuff is fantastic, very, very important, especially when faced with certain situations like this. Okay, take a deep breath. This isn't real. All right, but this sympathetic response, this fight or flight, is super helpful when we are being faced with something like a charging bear or lion or wolf or whatever it is, so we can run and be aware of our surroundings, okay? Now, if you live out in the west of the United States or in Canada and you know, brown bears or grizzly bears are part of the nature, then you know you should not be running from these bears, okay? So quick rabbit hole here. Do not run from big brown bears, all right? In fact, you should be staying calm, making yourself big, and talking to the bear calmly. But that, of course, isn't our first response. So we're going to go with this initial response of running, which is great because our sympathetic nervous system is in drive here, and we have the ability to do that when this switch gets flipped. Now, that's great and all when we are running from something or in danger. It's not quite as helpful when we get an alert on our phone, okay? And here's the thing. Our brain can't really tell the difference between running from a bear, don't do that, by the way, or the alert on our phone, or the traffic jam, or the argument that we just had. That sympathetic drive gets triggered. And as we saw, that can have a whole host of physiologic impacts, right? And we'll start here where we often do, especially, you know, in the lens of functional medicine and really in a lot of different forms of medicine, in the gut, right? So what did we learn from that diagram? When we are in fight or flight, our gut stops moving food along. It's not time to digest right now. We're not going to be secreting the enzymes and secretions to help things move smoother. And so what happens here? Well, this can result in cramping and bloating and indigestion symptoms, abdominal pain, right? And that's not fun. A lot of us, you know, will be experiencing this on the regular, right? We go to see our practitioners about this. And it's, you know, again, in that acute care model, we do have medications to help with this. It's fantastic. You know, you can get some acute help from, you know, calming down the spasms in the intestines, which, you know, will improve that pain. It's great. Help the bowels move a little bit more regularly. But if we look through a different lens here and say, okay, well, what is actually happening when that is causing this response? And we say, oh, we're looking upstream now. It's, wow, it's that fight or flight response. It's that sympathetic drive that is causing our gut to stop things up, okay? And another huge component here, and I won't go down too big of a rabbit hole, but it is worth mentioning the gut microbiome here. And the gut microbiome, these are the trillions of bugs, bacteria, viruses, protozoa, yeast, all the stuff that live in our intestines and help contribute to our health. There's actually more cells, bacterial cells, and various microbes in our gut than there are human cells that make up our body. We are more microbiome than we are human. Very interesting. So it's no surprise here that as we are slowing down digestion, okay, that these microbes that help with digestion and producing vitamins and minerals, that they are in contact with this food for longer. This food is staying in the intestines for longer periods. Now, that's all well and good. You would think, okay, well, maybe we're digesting more and absorbing more of these nutrients. It actually can be problematic because this bacteria, when things slow down, the bacteria can actually migrate up through our intestines where it shouldn't be. And when that happens, there's something called dysbiosis, an imbalance of the gut microbiome that can take place. And this can be problematic. It can perpetuate more of these cramping, bloating symptoms and actually cause things like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which, no fun. No fun. It's going to just perpetuate all this. So what we can do here, okay, we're going to dive into this, but the microbiome is huge, okay? Now, again, this is a lot of what is causing the cramping and bloating. The microbes are faced with these food for longer periods of time. They're producing this gas that causes the distension in our abdomen and the cramping and bloating, okay? So we're going to come back to this, but treating them well is going to be huge, all right? So what else happens here? We saw that when we were in that fight or flight, that our liver is also getting the signal to produce more sugar, release more glucose so that our muscles have the energy, so that our brain has the energy to think. And this is fantastic. It's great. It's needed when we are running from danger. Less useful when we are doing this on a daily basis and we have either a genetic predisposition or our environment is setting us up for insulin resistance, which leads to prediabetes and diabetes. When our blood sugar is constantly being elevated, this can be problematic, as many of you may know or have experience with. So again, we'll look into how turning down that sympathetic drive can actually help in managing our blood sugar levels. Now, not only that, we saw that the impact of the fight or flight, we felt it maybe when that ringtone went off, our heart starts pumping more, okay? Our vessels dilate. This is going to increase our blood pressure. And when this is also happening chronically on a daily basis, routinely, without any checks or balances, this also is going to change the structure of our heart to a degree that will essentially cause or contribute to hypertension or elevated blood pressure. Okay, so something that's super important to be aware of. So why, what's going on here? How does this happen? Right? We're living in a modern world, right? There's so much at our fingertips now. A lot of the advancements are very helpful and can actually really minimize some of the stressors that we used to deal with. But as you're probably aware of, things like the phone and social media and a lot of the other nuanced stuff that come with modernity here can really perpetuate the stress response when taken out of context or on a routine basis. So what this might look like, in the sort of working world here, if you're at a job or even, in the street, I'll say from my experience, working in a fast-paced clinic, I sometimes am going all day without taking a deep breath. And this is not good. You know you're in that fight or flight. That heartbeat is going. You're taking shallow breaths, right? You're not taking a step back and saying, okay, let's calm down this nervous system. Let's switch gears here a little bit so that we can take a break, right? And take a breath. But sometimes it's not, work or the modern world. Sometimes it's just our thoughts, right? Our thoughts are just pushing us in the direction of this fight or flight response because there's so much going on. There's so much that requires our attention. And life is hard. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made on a daily basis, and this can be overwhelming and overstimulating. And our brain, once again, cannot tell the difference between a charging bear or our phone going off. Super important. So let's do this. Let's take a breath and let's talk a little bit about the physiology of calm. How do we reverse this a little bit and get into this alternate state where we can relax? All right, this is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, our rest and digest stage. And you can see here from the diagram again what is happening. Okay, we have saliva that gets stimulated here up the top of the nervous system. There are our lungs can take a break, our heart can take a break, it slows down a bit, and we can pick up on digestion and secretion of enzymes and things that make movement of food through our system a little bit easier. Our bile gets released so that we can absorb fat in our intestines, and we can finally pee, right? Our bladder contracts. It's just happy days all around, right? And the real superhero here in this whole system is something called the vagus nerve. This thing is magical. I would be surprised if you haven't already heard at least a little bit about the vagus nerve in some of the other presentations today at the International Day of Calm Summit. So definitely, we're going to take a high-level view here, but definitely dive into some of those other presentations, okay? So again, when we look at this chart, we can see the extent of what this cranial nerve 10, this vagus nerve is doing. It's responsible for the lungs and the heart and the digestion and the liver and the adrenals, just taking things down a notch. And what happens when this takes place? Well, we have a happier intestine and colon. Our fluids are moving, our food is moving through our system a little bit easier. Our microbiome is not getting backed up here with food and overproducing gas and causing distension and pain. Things are really doing well. Our microbiome is so happy because the hormones that are triggered, the adrenal hormones, the adrenaline, the cortisol, surprisingly, that also has an impact on the levels of our microbiome, the good versus bad, quote unquote, good versus bad bacteria in our guts. Okay, so super important there when we're talking about the balance, okay? So things move more smoother. We're able to digest and absorb key nutrients, right, from the food that we're consuming into our body, goes through our liver, goes to the places where it needs to be, whether or not that's the brain or the heart or the muscles. Everything's getting where it needs to be. But also, we have a happier blood sugar response. Now, again, we saw that constantly stimulating the sympathetic fight or flight is going to tell the liver to release glucose into the bloodstream so that we have that. Whereas turning down that sympathetic drive and stimulating the vagus nerve is going to help with regulation, giving the liver and our other endocrine hormone systems a break, a little bit of a break to catch up. And again, this can contribute to improved blood sugar levels. And we revisit the heart here because also we saw that the heart rate is going to go down here with stimulating the vagus nerve. And we're going to talk about how to do that because it's super important. Our heart can slow down. It can take a breath, right? And and really help prevent things like hypertension or elevated blood pressure levels. Okay, so what do we do as we are moving toward calm here? What can we do? It's very easy to say, okay, I want to do it all. I want to jump in. I want to climb the mountain, take these big steps. How do I do it? How do I do it? Just show me the way. I would encourage you to just take a step, take a slow step, one foot in front of the other, and get something worked into your routine slowly. Okay? Start with a small habit, something that you can do on a daily basis and build upon. Because really, and again, I think that, it will be discussed in some other presentations today, the art of building habits and being intentional about what we're doing here and in trying to remain in a state of calm more often than not. It's going to take practice. There's going to be ups and downs. Life is going to happen. So we can't get away from that. And we shouldn't, shouldn't have to. We shouldn't necessarily try and be 100% over here on the calm side because we need that balance. Everything in life is about that balance. So taking a step back, small steps, build on the habits that you already have and move the needle in the right direction. This is going to be huge. So the first thing, which may be easy for you, is breath and breathing. Okay? So again, take a second to do that here as we wind down. Hopefully that whole first half didn't get you worked up and you were doing some abdominal breathing throughout. But let's talk a little bit about what that actually looks like. All right? Abdominal breathing. Okay, where we're actually taking it and letting the diaphragm go down and really push our stomach out, right? So this can be super helpful, taking it step by step, putting a hand on your abdomen, one on your chest, taking a breath and feeling your stomach move outward. Breathe slowly out, all right? Pressing lightly on your stomach, and then repeat this, all right? And you'll notice moving into that state of calm, okay? So an important step here with the breath, which is huge, is your inhale should be shorter than your exhale. That's going to do wonders at stimulating this vagus nerve, and we saw the impact that can have at the physiologic level. Okay, this is how we do it with our breath. Implementing this throughout the day. Again, if you're going through a day, days like I shared with you, where you're not taking a single deep breath, that can be challenging on your nervous system. So even setting an alarm or every hour, taking a second to do a few of these abdominal breaths, taking 30 seconds a minute, right? Every hour to just get some abdominal breaths. Stimulate that vagus nerve. Turn that fight or flight response down can be huge, all right? So that's breath. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. What's another thing? Eating, mindful eating. So what does this mean? What does this look like? So a lot of us here, again, in modernity and in work schedules or life schedules or kids, taking care of kids, we are often eating on the go. We're scarfing food down when we can. And that in and of itself is gonna, oftentimes result in symptoms, oftentimes unpleasant symptoms that we described, right? The gas, the bloating, the cramping, the maybe even fluctuating between bowel concerns, diarrhea, constipation. So again, if we can just pause during meal times or snack times and practice mindful eating, where we are taking these deep breaths, these abdominal breaths, maybe before eating, being mindful about chewing our food, swallowing, and really being present while we eat. That can be huge, right? As we are talking about the impact on the gut, because it will impact so many other physiologic systems, as we saw. So this is much easier said than done, okay? And so like anything, this is going to be more so about progress, not perfection. Maybe there's one meal a day right now where you can really take a step back and take some deep breaths and focus. Maybe that's breakfast. Maybe that's dinner. Maybe it's lunch. Maybe it's a snack. It doesn't matter. Pick one and move forward. Or maybe this is not something you want to work on now, but write it down. Make a note. Maybe in a few weeks, when you've got the breath work routine habits already in place, you can sort of build on that and now incorporate a mindful eating habit. All right. So think about that. Next up, super important when we're talking about regulating hormones and our tolerance for stressors is sleep. Again, I'd be surprised if there's not at least another presentation here in the summit about it. But what does this mean? Getting that 7 to 8 hours, wherever your magic number is for that sleep, is huge, because again, it helps to regulate key hormones that will make it easier to tolerate the stressors and stay in a healthy balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. That rest and digest and fight or flight, we want a healthy balance, and getting that sleep is really going to be helpful. So what does that look like? Well, many of us have difficult times getting to sleep, staying asleep. And so this could be employing a breathing activity before sleep to help get you in that parasympathetic rest and digest mode. All right, doing those abdominal breathing methods, going through some of the mindfulness meditation that again, I'm certain that somebody's going to be going through in other presentations here. That can be super helpful. All right. And then what else? We can laugh. Laughing stimulates the vagus nerve. That happiness, the endorphins we get. We're getting a rush of good feeling hormones. We're stimulating the vagus nerve. We're getting into the rest and digest. It is, I don't know if anybody can really argue that laughing is not a good thing to be doing. So cherishing that and making time for that, to spend time with friends, family, connecting with them, however you can. We're in a very different world now with the pandemic, so that, can look like connecting over social media in a healthy way, that could over the phone, whatever works for you. Okay, but laughing is huge and actually stimulates that vagus nerve, that rest and digest mode. Okay. Next, exercise. Exercise can be helpful. We know this. It's really a question of what can you do in your routine and habit, right? For movement and exercise, I don't really like the term exercise. I like movement and intentional movement. And this can be as simple as walking, walking the neighborhood. This, can be playing with your kids. It can be gardening. It can be anything that you enjoy, that you can fit seamlessly into what you're already doing. And if you notice that you're feeling better and better and you want to take build on that, okay, well, do that. But make sure it works for you, because that's how you're going to get it to stick and really, really move forward. Okay. Now, if you want to go, a step further here in stimulating the vagus nerve, we can go into that cold exposure. Okay. And this can be challenging for a lot of people, but it does wonders at building our stress tolerance. Okay. There's a lot of great data out there also for mental health, improving things like anxiety, depression, our tolerance to stressors with cold exposure. So what does this look like? Do you have to jump into icy water? Well, you can, but certainly, we want to make sure that we are doing this safely. Okay, so working with a professional would be the way to go. But this could also look like, at the end of a nice warm shower, turning the water down to as cold as it can get for the last few minutes. That in and of itself can really help stimulate that vagus nerve. It's going to get you a little stressed at first, but it will help to build the tolerance so that, again, we have this balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. All right, so I threw a lot at you here, but really, what are we talking about? We know that there is no short supply of stress going on, whether or not, whatever living environment we are in, there are stressors, right? Is it work? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it our environment itself? But getting into a state of calm, this is going to require a lot of work and persistence, right? So start small and build on those foundational habits that you already have in place, right? Take those deep breaths throughout the day. If you need to set an alarm, do that, right? Be mindful about some eating, maybe just one meal. Maybe it's one meal a week, right? That one time where you can be good about just taking those deep breaths, chewing the food, and letting that sink in, right? Getting that regular movement and exercise, getting the sleep, taking some time, employing some meditation, which I didn't really focus on here because again, I am hopeful that somebody else is going to take a deep dive into that. But mindfulness meditation, journaling, all of these beautiful habits that can really help keep us in a state of calm and really help balance this whole process here. All right. Well, if you enjoyed this presentation and want to learn more, definitely check out our podcast, the Talk Health podcast, and our Facebook group. We are doing everything we can to help people like you, like myself, take those small steps and build on these healthy habits to keep us in a state of calm, get our mental health in a place where we can be resilient, we can tolerate the the stressors of the day in a way that is healthy. Okay, so check it out. Let me know what you think, and thank you for taking the pledge. Thank you for being here with me this International Day of Calm, and I look forward to seeing all of these presentations and really learning so much. Okay, well, you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you again for being here with me, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.